Hello, incredible listeners. Welcome back to Third Eye Talks. We have an incredible topic today. I have a wonderful guest that I can't wait for you all to hear from. Her name is Sarah Rose, and she is a divine feminine embodiment and leadership coach. She is also a 5D sales mentor, and she's going to be talking to us today about the topic of the new era of feminine embodiment. This is going to be so great. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Naz. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited about this topic. I could talk about it forever, so I'm excited to dive in with you.
I love that. Me too. I could talk forever about a number of things. So I'm sure this is going to be one of those that I'm going to have to be like, we need a part two because I love this topic and I cannot
Yes.
wait to hear from you, knowing that you are an expert practicing this with, women all over the world. And I can't wait to hear from you. So, first things first, I would love for you to tell me a little bit about you and your background and how you got to be the 5D sales mentor and what made you want to work on female embodiment?
Well, it was not even, it was more of a calling than any, and it was more of an activation. As most divine feminines know on this journey, you're kind of activated on this path. I had a spiritual awakening back in 2012, like so many, Kundalini awakening and opening up more to my divine gifts. And fast forward, that turned into a huge self-healing journey, and really pretty much like one big tower moment for a period of like 4 years, and enter Twin Flame Catalyst in like 2019, which then took a whole spin on a dark night of the soul where completely rebirth, completely like you're being stripped of your attachments on this journey. Really, the divine feminine path is about really coming into embodiment of your divinity and the divine love within you. And so you get stripped of all of your attachments as much as, and the ego goes down, kind of kicking and screaming with that. It's a full surrender to divine love and divine will. And that brings us up to, 2024 for a lot of feminines. And when I'm saying feminine, I don't mean gender. So there's a lot of men as well on this path, but it was a lot of fully standing in our authenticity and our integrity and making choices that are sovereign and deeply connected to our truth. And enter 2025, the energies are very palpable. Like the masks are coming off in 2025 and beyond. There's no more hiding. There's really no more room to play small or hide from the greatness that is within you. And it's been an evolution and an ascension journey. Yeah, a wild ride.
I love how you summarized it. And as you were summarizing it, I'm like, there's so much story here between each of these, like your spiritual awakening alone, I'm sure could be,
Yeah.
an entire season of an episode. So thank you so
Yeah.
much for being so honest about that journey that you have
Yeah.
been on. And I'm so glad that, you got here to this place. And you're totally right. 2025 is that year.
Mhm.
And I've been talking about it pretty much since the end of last season, which was in November, how this year was going to be one of those super powerful years. Like you
For
said,
sure.
shedding to really
Yep.
get into our authenticity. So one of the first things that I thought about that I wanted to ask you when I was thinking about this episode was, I talk a lot about collective energy, and I would love to know from you collectively what is it that we want to recognize or we want to be recognized about female energy right now?
Collectively, there's different waves within the collective. This is very timely and also timeless whenever you're landing on this because there are different waves. We're being all roads on this journey lead home to our own divinity. And we're being called on a collective level, I believe, to really tap into who we truly are, our authenticity, and come home to ourselves and really anchored in our body, our wisdom, our natural, intuitive, ancient, sacred wisdom that's rising up within us. As far as the embodiment process goes, it's really an anchoring into the body. It's not just about, this isn't something that can be conceptualized, I guess we should say. It's not a conceptual, it's not a mind thing, right? This is a journey from head to heart, the journeyless journey to come home to who you truly are, which is the pathless path. And so I don't know if I'm answering the question, but but as far as our sacred femininity goes, I mean, especially women, I am going to speak directly to women right now, are we are wired differently. We know coming into attunement with our own cycles, our ancient wisdom that wants to rise within us, especially if you're a way shower or leader on this journey and you're at the front lines of this ascension collectively. We're being guided to go in and connect to who we truly are. Trust is a really big theme, overcoming self-doubt and trusting in yourself and trusting in the divine wisdom and the infinite intelligence that you truly are at your core,
Hmm.
fully anchored in your humanity. So we're not dismissing humanity, our humanness, our human journey, our human experience, but moving beyond that as the way we move through the world from our from the intelligence that literally beats our heart and looks through our eyes, our divine intelligence, which can only be accessed in the present moment,
Hmm.
not in the stories and the narratives that keep you bouncing between the polarity of good and bad, left and right, right and wrong, up and down, and all the things, and all the conceptual reality, the world of labels and symbols. It's about being able to come home and anchor into the truth of who we truly are, which is beyond that, is being able to cultivate true spiritual vision, which is being able to see through the eyes of your heart, the one eye through your heart that is connected to all things and that is one with all things and all of creation. And that is where we're moving into to be able to create from this place our divine creations, our divine, spirit just wants the God, divine, infinite, all that is, whatever you want to call it, just wants to create through us through our unique individual expression. And not so there's a huge stepping into the unknown, releasing the linear logical way of doing things, old ways of manifesting or goal setting and things like that don't even work anymore because you're literally being surrendered to release the personal will, dissolve that. The ego goes down kind of kicking and screaming with that because there's a lot of fear around that. To be able to surrender to the unseen and the unknown and follow and trust the guidance that's within your heart and to move in that sacred path, like with full, unwavering faith, conviction, and trust in yourself and in the divine, which are two, one and of the same.
Hmm. Hmm. Why do you think, I guess the main question that comes to me when you say that is, why now? Like, why do you think that we're being called to step into this heart-centered creation, creating from the heart and like that, all of that? Why is that happening, do you think now? Why are we being called to do that now?
I mean, I'll just give my spin on it. Of course, there's this big unknown mystery that we're all just playing here right now on
Of
in Earth.
course.
But, there's lots of prophecies around 2025 and this being the end of an era as we move in. I don't know if you've ever heard of like Kali Yuga and the different phases of, you know, humanity. We're moving into a collective ascension more so than ever before that so like you can think of like ascended masters and like 30 years ago you had to go to an ashram, you had to go to like meditate in the mountains for who knows, like it was for the select few. Nowadays there's just everyone is waking up in waves every day, every day. Everyday humans are waking up in the collective level. um, we're here to realize the truth of who we are. And I just feel like that's part of what we came here to do. That's why we incarnated here. The bigger why, like nobody knows, like
Mhm.
what's really going on. You know what I mean? And that's part of the process is surrendering to the unknowableness of this magical mystery and realizing that we don't know. We don't know. I don't know. Nobody really truly knows, but we have this intuitive knowing that is within us that we are beyond what this physical expression is animating in this lifetime, and that's part of this experience is to realize our true identity. On a collective like global scale, you'll hear lots of prophecies and lots of people talking about new earth and 5D ascension and things like that, and I totally that's I mean, it's evident that that's what's happening. And I think I said this earlier. I don't know if I said this yet, but the masks are coming off and humanity is not going to be able to put in, brush things under the rug anymore. The shadows are being illuminated, truths are being revealed on a collective level because everything that's been rooted in falsehood or manipulation, greed, control, things like that are being revealed. So we can literally build new earth brick by brick, rooted in truth, which is love, compassion, empathy, and oneness with all of creation. And so it just depends on what kind of things feel resonant for you. It really is what I say. But apparently ascension is earth is going through like a 26,000 year cycle, and we are at the very end of it, and 2025 has been prophesized as the year of the great transition, where we are entering into the transition years as we elevate into a whole new age, a whole new era.
Yeah. Ooh,
Yeah.
I love that. It gives me chills.
Yeah.
I love that. And it sounds, you said a very specific word in what you were saying, which was we're being asked um, to surrender to like our uniqueness, to surrender to our path, to trust the things that we can't see. And when you speak about that energy, to me, that is female, divine, feminine energy. That is, because the female energy is meant to flow, to have faith, to know that everything will be taken care of. That sort of energy is what
Mhm.
I think of,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so it sounds like that is why right now is a great time. I mean, it's always a great time, but it sounds like a really ripe time to come to a place where you can embody your female energy. And that goes whether you are male, by gender,
Right.
male or female, that you really activate that female energy, that divine feminine energy, right? I feel like that's
Yes. It's about coming home. Yeah, exactly. Trusting yourself, following your intuition, following the flow, creating from the heart, creating from compassion, creating from empathy. So I see this in the work that I do across all sectors. I see this within healthcare, people waking up to wanting to have a more compassionate way of helping patients. I see this within technology. I see this within the AI space. I see this within, financial and wealth sectors. I see this within sales and business and management, entrepreneurship. Like there's so much of this that's intuitively rising within us, like the over masculinated, toxic masculine cycle of overdoing, over efforting, forcing at the expense of our own well-being, at the expense of our own joy, at the expense of our own free-flowing sovereignty and things like that is phasing out. And so feminine and masculine are the yin and the yang of creation, and there's nothing, masculine energy can sometimes get a bad rap, but masculine energy is really following the feminine's lead, which is the intuitive guidance, which is the intuitive knowing, which is the trust in thyself, which is the love that is emanating and creating from heart. And when you can come into alignment with aligned feminine energy versus distorted feminine energy, which is what I like to talk about a lot, is distorted feminine energy is coming from this place of feeling like you need to fill a void. It's coming from a void within. It's seeking the external validation outside the self. And so the masculine energy, which is results driven and externally focused, goes out and tries to go do all the things or be all the things or build all the things or create all the things outside of us, which ends up falling down like a house of cards if you're on this path, because you can't build your new reality rooted in love on false truths. So if you're in the wounded feminine energy, then your masculine energy is going to be like, okay, and go out and try to overcompensate for that inner void. When you can come home to yourself and really recognize and realize the divinity within yourself and fully trust and know that you are divinely guided and one with all of creation, then you can create from a place of flow and feminine flow and intuition and trust and surrender, and action still arises, but it's the most inspired, most guided, most high aligned action that leads to, and here's the kicker, the highest greatest good of all involved. It's no longer self-servedness. It's coming into alignment with what's in the highest and greatest good of all involved. We are one, we are created, we are all one with creation. So the masculine energy is then taking its direction, so to speak, its directive from healed, whole, and complete feminine energy versus taking overcompensating energy from wounded feminine energy. I don't believe we're wounded at our core, but we've accumulated conditions and patterns and stories and narratives and real life situations, I've been through them myself, that condition us to be that we are somehow unworthy. And that unworthiness and that void from within is what forces us to go look outside of ourselves and for external validation. And that's where the over masculine energy then just leads to chasing and seeking and over giving and doing and efforting and burnout eventually, because it's not coming from truth. It's coming from a false narrative of unworthiness.
Mhm. You touched on I this was one of the questions that I had, but I think you touched a lot on it in what you just said. But I do want to kind of put
Yeah.
a pin on it and
Yeah.
expand on it. Um, who or what sort of energy or personality type or mentality or subconscious program, which who's going to have the hardest time basically with this new earth we're creating? Like, let's give some warnings out of, hey, if you're in this energy, start to consider that we're moving in this direction. Can you give me a little bit of that? Who's
That's
going to have
kind
a
of
hard time?
That's kind of like a loaded question, but I mean, I don't want to instill any kind of fear or
Yeah,
anything like that. So this
yeah.
isn't to instill fear in any way, but we are all going to be challenged. We are creating we are the collective. We are, the collective consciousness and what's playing out on the world stage. We contribute to that in some way through our own individual consciousness. So we are all being guided, whether you're on the quote unquote spiritual path or not. Like we're going to be guided to, trust and move into a more authentic space. And so it's kind of like the more you resist that, the more life is going to come in and show you a mirror of where you are resisting your truth and where you are not where you are still in division within yourself. Keep in
Mhm.
mind, there are also people that probably are not tuning into this podcast, but that are not meant to ascend in this lifetime. They're not on the ascension timeline. We're talking right now to people that are on the ascension. So they're going to have their own experiences. And this is where we kind of talk about the split between new earth and old matrix reality. But if you're on the ascension timeline, you're going to have the mirror right up in your face. Like the masks are coming off, like you're not going to be able to hide. So, where are you lying to yourself about this career that sucks your energy? Where are you in a relationship that's no longer serving you? Like, what's really keeping you from taking that step or taking that leap of faith on yourself? Like, where are you allowing lack or fear or scarcity mindset like rule your path instead of fully believing in the infinite abundance that you are? And so these things are going to be reflected back, and it's the more you resist, the more it persists, the more the mirror is going to persist, I guess you could say.
I
But
hear
it's
that.
all,
I
and
hear
it's
that.
not, it's just serving your highest good. And then eventually you come to full circle and you see that and you come full, and you're like, okay, yeah, I know exactly what all that had to happen. And thank God that like literally so grateful for all of those experiences.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love that. So if someone is, let's say, comes to you as a coach, as an embodiment coach, and we know that we're moving into this energy that requires more trust, more trust in the divine, whatever that means for, different people, more trust and more heart-centered
Mhm.
faith. If someone comes to you and says, I have a really hard time taking my hands off the wheel and just letting things be and trusting, what's kind of the first thing that you have them practice or that you ask them to consider? Like, how do you help someone to get on that path?
Well, the grasping for control is a natural ego tendency that will be with you up until the very end of self-realization and even beyond. So this is a very primal, it's very primal for our own safety and security, but it's also coming from over masculine distorted energy that needs to control the reality outside in order to feel safe. Ultimately, that's what it is. It's or in order to feel safe. And the feminine in us requires us to feel safe. The feminine wants to rest and feel safe. And if you don't feel safe from within for being who you truly are, for speaking your truth, or just, if you don't feel safe in any way, if you were conditioned through your life, maybe through trials or tribulations, dramas or traumas that have told you in some way that it's not okay to be safe or be who you truly are, then you're going to externally go out and focus on anything that you can control within the 3D reality in order to give you that false sense of safety, security, validation, or approval. And so this is really about first recognizing the wounded feminine shadow, which is operating from a place of powerlessness, oftentimes victimhood, oftentimes people pleasing, codependency, or giving power away in some way. So first, I always like to approach it by recognizing the feminine shadow and taking full ownership of what role we are playing in co-creating this experience and where it came from and understanding that, not to identify with it, not to take it on as a thing, but to see it for what it is. Because when you shine the light on the shadow, it no longer has power over you. But until you shine the light of conscious awareness on the shadow, it will rule your life and you will call it fate. Carl Jung, right? So we have to be able to look at the shadow, which is what most people are not willing to do and what the ego does not want to do. What the ego wants to do is go out like a band-aid and fix everything in the externalized world of form and say that that's going to make me feel safe, secure, happy, joyful, lovable, or worthy. And so then we attach to money, success, careers, relationships, and all the things, prestige, vanity, whatever it is, to give us this false sense of safety or security. First things first is looking at the feminine shadow for what it is and shining a light on it. And then we move into elevating our standards, creating, and that naturally creates more healthy boundaries. And that starts to create the sacred space for the awakened feminine essence within you to come into fruition and to
Mm.
blossom.
It sounds so it sounds like such a beautiful. I know it's going to be a tough process for a lot of us, but I also feel like the end result of that is this beautiful surrender where we're able to manifest in a way that doesn't require all of this pursuing and action
Yeah.
taking and lack or scarcity mindset, as you said. So it
Yeah.
does sound just really yummy.
Completely flips the script on that. It's the opposite. It's creating from what I call unprecedented creation, because it's you move into creating things you've never created for that would blow your mind, that are beyond what your mind could even conceive, because you're now working with the infinite divine intelligence that pours through you and is you, and you allow that to be your expression. So this is what I refer to as the divine creatrix, becoming the divine creatrix of your life, right? Like really creating from your empress energy, which is not coming from fear, lack, scarcity, or unworthiness. So when we're
Mm,
speaking on an embodiment level, just to women in general, because that's primarily who I talk to. But this is fully knowing your worth on an intuitive and embodied level, not a conceptual level, and being able to move through life in that way. And that's what really activates your magnetism. Magnetism then creates your reality very easy and effortlessly without
mm,
having to force it or effort it. It's
mhm,
literally where you move into like instant, like you just see, you expect miracles around every corner because you are the miracle, you are the synchronicity, there's no separation, and you just move into such a level of trust and faith and surrender that things start to unfold very organically and naturally.
mhm,
And you
mhm,
couldn't have made them up. You couldn't have made them up. And that's the thing, because we keep getting hooked into the mental realm that wants to try to control the process, that wants to try to make things happen, that wants to try to figure it out, that wants the next step. And it's always future projection. That's the one
mhm,
thing. It's always future projection. When you're in the now, when you're operating from your divine presence, when you are not allowing yourself to get sucked into the narrative and you're fully embodied and creative ideas bubble up and then move you because you can't not do them because they're so creative. They're pulling on your soul. It's like you're pulled by vision instead of being forced to do something because you're afraid of what happens if you don't. Instead, you're being pulled by vision and by truth and by divinity that's within you to expand into more, because that's what life does. Life expands. That's the
mhm,
same infinite intelligence that grows a flower from a little baby seed into a full expression. rising
Mhm.
towards the sun, that's seeking its full expression. And that same divine intelligence within us that beats our heart wants to fully expand and express. That's all it wants to do is fully expand and express without resistance. We give
Mhm.
it the resistance by believing that we are the separate sense of self and then layering on all of the conditioned patterns, belief systems, and storylines and narratives of what we think it should be like, what we think it should look like, how we think it should feel. And what we're doing is we're just layering resistance on the divine plan that is already in alignment with the biggest picture beyond what our mind can see and is orchestrating the whole damn thing anyway. So it might as well just surrender and let it happen.
Yes, there's so much. I've used this many times with clients. I've told them, look, we're taught to believe that surrender means you've given up or that you're not doing anything, but actually surrendering is an action, and it's probably one of the best actions that you can take at any time is to say, I surrender to the divine, and I allow solutions to be created for me, and I allow the path to be to unfold for me. That place is just, it's so much easier to live from. So really quickly,
Well,
you know,
kind of easy, but then that's when the need to control will pop in
oh
and
yeah.
try to figure it out. And then that's the thing. And so that naturally begins to dissolve, though, naturally as you come home to yourself and life either forces you to surrender in many ways or you willingly do it. Some, eventually, like it just, it happens
Hmm.
by the grace of God, to be honest, because our mind will constantly find ways to keep hooking us into the storyline and narrative that we know how to figure all of this out, and we don't know anything.
Yeah. Yeah. You're
And that's the
fine.
most humbling thing on the journey is to realize that,
You know nothing.
yeah, I don't know anything. I know that I know, yeah, you release the need to know, releasing the need to know, releasing the need for certainty, and releasing the need to have to figure it out or having some future projection that you can rest in to give you a false sense of security or certainty. That is not 5D creation. That's not New Earth creation. Heart-centered creation is not linear like that. It's fully trusting and knowing and surrendering.
Ooh, you put that beautifully. I love that. Um, One last question. I know we're almost out of time, but I do want to touch on it really quickly. We have, there's a lot of stuff out in the world that tells us what female energy should be.
Yeah.
Um, and I think a lot of it is very distorted. So I would love for you to touch really quickly on what divine female energy is not. Can we do
Yes. Okay.
that?
Yeah, let's talk about that for 2 seconds because I also speak about this periodically, which I need to do more of. So it's perfect. So for example, like we have light and dark divine feminine energy. And what I see the most distorted out there are people that are teaching other, I'm not judging them. I'm just saying it is what it is. You got to use your discernment, right? Like your people are using feminine energy as another form of manipulation. And that is wounded feminine energy, to use your feminine energy as a form of manipulation. So, like, for example, you'll see people teaching like dark feminine energy or divine feminine or feminine energy in order to get a man to respond in a certain way, in order to get your needs met, right? Or like, or seduction and things like that. And sensuality, sexuality, and seduction is a beautiful part of awakening to your feminine essence, part of your sacral chakra awakening and fully your creative center, right? Your creative life force energy is one and of the same with your sexual life force energy. And so that gets awakened on this journey, but anything can be used by the ego. And if it's being used by the ego, you'll know because it's using it to manipulate an external circumstance, situation, or person in order to get some form of need met, to fill some kind of void. Divine feminine energy does not need to manipulate. Divine feminine energy, your goddess frequency attracts, does not need to manipulate, does not need to try to figure things out, doesn't need to get someone to respond in a certain way in order for her to feel good enough, valued, worthy, or anything like that. She is self-validating from within. When you're embodied in your divine feminine essence, you are self-validated from within. There is no need for external validation for anyone to perform in a certain way. You will align with what's happening or you won't align with what's happening, and your intuitive wisdom will guide you very succinctly because you will be operating from healthy discernment because you don't become like a doormat, like just open to anything on this journey. You actually become very wise and very discerning of what deserves your time, energy, and space. And you just become to, you move with those things and you're very discerning about it. But you don't need to go outside and manipulate external situations, circumstances, or people in order to give you some form of self-serving need that you feel you need. That is distorted. And it's just being used by, it's being hooked by the ego and used by the ego. Anything can be used by the ego. And that's just one way that I see it happening a lot.
Woo. Oh my goodness. I love that. I love that. I absolutely love that. And I thank you so much for bringing that forward and for the beautiful way in which you've expressed exactly what female energy is not. I absolutely love it. So,
Yeah.
Sarah, thank you so much for being here today. I want everyone to have access to you. So please tell us, where can we find you and how can we get into your world?
Yes, well, divinefemme.co, not .com, is my website, and that has access to all of my programs. Right now, I do have Embody the Empress, which is my membership, which is all around divine feminine awakening, healing, embodiment, and leadership, moving into leadership. This is really about healing the wounded feminine energy and really activating your magnetism and stepping into your full power and sovereignty. So that's a beautiful membership. It's very accessible to all, everybody. So that is kind of like my baby right now at the moment. And yeah, and then I help with all different phases of the journey, whether you're going through a rebirth and you want to step into leadership or you're trying to build a business online, like all of those things as well. But everything can be accessed on divinefemme.co, and my podcast is The Calling Uncensored.
I
So
love it. Well, thank you so much, Sarah. Listeners, go and check out her website, and they can follow you on social media at.
I'm primarily on Instagram, that's and YouTube.
Okay. And what is
YouTube
your handle so they can.
on Instagram, it's Spiritual CEO,
Okay.
and on YouTube, it's Divine Femme TV with Sarah Rose.
Love it. All right. Well, dear listeners, you heard it here. It's time to awaken and to surrender, to become really heart-centered and heart-guided, and to dive deep into our divine feminine. And if you want to explore this work further, please reach out to Sarah Rose. She is obviously the expert on this, and you deserve it. Gift it to yourself. Go and get in the membership. Thank you, Sarah, for coming on and
Thank
talking
you
to us.
so
I
much.
appreciate you.
Yeah, it was so fun. All right,
Yes.
thank you, Naz.
Thank you. And to my listeners, I'll see you next time on Third Eye Talks. Bye.
Bye.